There's no denying that School of Rock has become an absolute classic. And why not? It's the definition of a feel-good story. A teacher who helps an entire classroom of children believe in themselves and realize their full potential. But also, it's the story of a burnt-out musician who lies about his identity to steal a teaching job for an easy paycheck, and take kids on field trips without their parents' permission in his windowless van. Though, in his defense, it was all in the pursuit of creating musical fusion. Is it the worst crime? No. But exactly how much trouble would Dewey Finn find himself in if the man brought him into a courtroom to answer for his crimes? If we didn't suspend our disbelief for the sake of a movie, what kind of legal penalties would he be looking at? That's what we're asking today. Welcome to Cinema Sentencing. Up on today's docket is Dewey Finn. Court is in session. So, the story introduces us to Dewey, an aspiring rock musician who just can't catch a break. His gigs aren't exactly successful, he's broke, unemployed, and mooching off of his best friend. And to make things worse, he even gets unanimously voted out of his own rock band.
Okay, you're gonna kick me out of the band, huh?
And with no prospects, he's forced to come up with a plan to make some cash fast to pay rent. His best friend and roommate happens to be a substitute teacher, and Dewey happens to pick up the phone when he gets a call from Horace Green Prep School to say that they need a substitute and they need one quickly. Which brings us to Dewey's first and most obvious crime, lying about his identity in order to gain employment teaching, specifically children. In this case, would probably constitute a couple different crimes. The first one is larceny or fraud by false pretenses. This basically occurs when someone knowingly lies about their identity or falsely represents themselves to obtain someone else's property. There actually was a similar situation in Michigan in which a woman was charged for larceny by false pretenses, lying about her identity, saying she was an employed substitute teacher in order to collect a paycheck, which was a misdemeanor that carried up to 90 days in jail and a $500 fine. That said, Dewey does show up to work himself, so he is working for his paycheck. I mean, not very well, but technically. So it might be difficult to charge him for any actual theft of money. But on the flip side, he is actively sabotaging children's education in order to use them to win money from Battle of the Bands.
You could say that every school in the state will be competing for the top prize.
Which he's doing under false pretenses. So one way or another, he is in some trouble. The other crime that Dewey commits is identity theft, taking his friend Ned's identity in order to poach his temping job.
A substitute teacher is not a temp.
Sorry, teaching job. That said, Ned is unlikely to bring charges against him. However, for felonies, sometimes the state itself can choose to charge regardless of there being an accuser. And if Dewey forged any contracts or paperwork, he would be in even more trouble. Now, after coasting through the days with endless recess, Dewey realizes the musical talent that these kids have, and decides to start a rock band, specifically to win a competition for the money. Daily recess turns into daily rehearsals, and Dewey gets closer and closer to that sweet Battle of the Bands money.
Time to write a rock song!
Eventually, Dewey takes the core band to the Battle of the Bands audition, and this, unfortunately, is another strike against him. You don't really think about it all too much while watching the film, because Jack Black is so endearing, but let's not pretend that using a false identity to take other people's children out of school, in this freaking van by the way, is not a gigantic red flag. Under any circumstance in real life, this would likely constitute either kidnapping or at the very least, child endangerment, which are really serious crimes. Doing all this while under false pretenses, with a stolen identity, and without the school's permission, is really a nail in the coffin on these charges. Then there's lying about the kids having a dying illness in order to trick Battle of the Bands to let them play.
We're on the bill.
Technically, this likely isn't a crime in itself. It isn't a charity he's lying to, just a contest, but it may still be further evidence to show his deceptive behavior when charging him for fraud. It all hits the fan on parent-teacher night when Dewey is forced to meet with the students' parents. It's clear that the truth is about to be revealed, before we see that Ned's girlfriend is telling a police officer about the identity theft and fraud, and Dewey finally spills the beans in literally the worst possible way.
I have been touched by your kids, and I'm pretty sure I've touched them. am.
Dewey somehow makes the situation worse by calling the identity theft and fraud charges and raising the bet to child abuse charges before cutting to a shot of him running through the halls as fast as he can. So it goes without saying that these abuse charges only stem from a poor choice of words. So let's be generous and assume that misunderstanding was squashed right away. Regardless, with the allegations of identity theft, fraud, and child endangerment or kidnapping, there is more than enough evidence to have him arrested. And since we see a cop right here, it's clear that Dewey is running not only from parents, but law enforcement as well. So we can add evading arrest to Dewey's crime spree. The next scene is where suspension of disbelief really kicks in, because there is no way that Dewey would be back at his apartment immediately after this, especially with the person who made the formal complaint to the cops living in the same house. Dewey would likely be in jail awaiting trial, or maybe out on bond in the meantime, if he were lucky. But the legal ramifications are never really alluded to, and the assumption is simply that he was merely fired from his job. It's also assumed that the whole kid-touching thing was cleared up at this point, given the fact that Dewey isn't in prison, and also because the parents would never be so forgiving at the film's climax, at least I would hope, if they suspected there was any truth in it. So Dewey gets sad, the parents direct their anger at the school, and the kids devise a plan to go pick up their band leader in time for Battle of the Bands. And although they're the ones to convince the bus driver to take them, Dewey happily goes along. Which, at this point, you know he was expressly told to stay the hell away from those kids by their parents and law enforcement. I mean, there's absolutely no way he wasn't. Which probably solidifies that kidnapping charge pretty well. Because, again, having the guy who stole someone's identity to come pull your kids out of school without your permission, come back and take your kids on another field trip without your permission, this is bad, Dewey. Really, really bad.
Can we tell our parents?
No! Just trust me, they don't want to know anything about this. Keep it zipped.
Which brings us to the film's finale, where the kids play Battle of the Bands, they absolutely kill it and nearly win. And their parents, who make their way into the crowd, see how much passion they have for music and are overwhelmed with pride and happiness. Which is great storytelling, but in the real world, Dewey's ass is getting hauled into the police station without a doubt. So let's go over his charges and sentence him. We're gonna do our best to be faithful to what the penalties for these crimes would likely be, and also factor in intent and circumstances.
Okay, you stay right there. Don't move.
Charge 1 is larceny or fraud under false pretenses. In this case, they probably have him dead to rights, and given how in-depth of a process this was, over several weeks, and the fact that it disrupted children's education, we give Dewey 180 days in jail. Charge 2 is identity theft. Similarly, pretty red-handed on this one as well. Dewey gets another 90 days in jail. We'll give him less time here simply because Ned is unlikely to cooperate in charging him. Charge number 3 is evading arrest. In the US, this actually most commonly results in 90 days in jail, which brings Dewey's total so far to 1 year in prison. However, we still have charge number 4, kidnapping or child endangerment. This is a tough one. If we were to assume the best intentions for Dewey, and all of the parents miraculously forgave him and thanked him for helping their kids realize their musical potential, the law would still have to be applied. So we think the kidnapping charges would be dropped and the child endangerment charge would stick, which we'll say he gets 2 years in prison for, which brings Dewey Finn's total sentence to 3 years in prison. I know, the man strikes again. Maybe you'll discover some real musical talent in the prison population and put on the best jailhouse talent show anyone's ever seen. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our sentencing, or if you think Dewey deserves a pardon. And remember to hit that notification bell, because we'll be bringing more movie characters into our courtroom next. So let us know who needs to be up next on the docket. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.